Okay, so this video is going to be all about patterns and sequences. And it's not real hard, but it'll take us a little bit, okay? So the nth term of a sequence is determined by the expression negative 3n minus 5. And the table shows the value for the different terms of the sequence. So there's two things you could do to find this answer. The first thing you could do is you could find the pattern and continue the table. Or you could use your calculator. And with your calculator, you can put the expression into y equals. And then after that, you can push second and graph to see the table so you can find the answer from there. I'm going to use that way because I think it's a little bit easier. So in your calculator, you type y equals. Your equation is negative 3n minus 5. We can't use an n in the calculator, so we're going to replace it with x. So we have negative 3x minus 5. Now look at the table, and you'll see that next to 40 has negative 125. So it has 40, negative 125. So negative 125 is our answer. Okay? If your calculator doesn't show you 40 right away, what you can do is you can push second window, and you can set your table start to 40, and then back to second table, and it will show you 2. Okay? All right, example number 2. Gives you a table and says, if using the table, if the pattern continues, which formula could be used to find f of x for any value of x? So they give us the equations and the answer choices. If you are given an equation, you can always use your calculator. So the question says, what should I do to find the answer if answer choices are equations? Every time your answer choices are equations, you're going to put each equation into y equals, and then push second and graph. And you're just going to match. So you're going to match the answer choice equations to the table in the calculator, okay? So if we try answer choice A, we go to y equals, we clear what's there, we type x minus 4. Now we want to go to the table, so second table. This table here starts where x is 4. My table is still at 40, so I'm going to go second window. Instead of starting at 40, I want to start at 4, second table. All right, this says I have 4, 0, so that works. 5, 1, but this table doesn't have 5, 1, so A cannot be the answer because they don't match. So now test B. So go to y equals, clear what's there. We need 2x minus 8. Go to the table. 4 is 0, 5 is 2. That doesn't work. The third table, we have x plus 0.5. Go to the table. At 4, we have 4.5, not 0, so that doesn't work. All right, the last answer choice says, clear what's there, 1/2. So alpha y equals, enter. We have a 1 over 2, and then parentheses, x minus 4. Go to the table. We have 4, 0. Now this is 5.5. That's the same as 1/2. 6 is 1. 7 is 1.5. That's 3/2. That works. So that is your answer. D is the answer. So every time you see equations in your answer choices, you need to use the y equals in your calculator and just compare your tables, okay? All right, next question, example 3. Example 3 says the first 5 terms in a sequence are shown. If the pattern continues, what would the next term be? Now this one I can't use y equals in my calculator because I don't have an expression or an equation to type in. So all I can do is legitimately find the pattern. In order to find the pattern, you're always going to take the second number minus the first number, and that will give you your pattern. So in this case, our second number is 1/2. Then we're going to subtract our first number. Our first number is negative 1/4. So I have 1/2 minus the first number, negative 1/4. Now this minus negative is funny, but it has to be there, okay? So now if I go to my calculator just to do that math, I need alpha y equals, oh, whoops. All right, alpha y equals, hang on. alpha. There we go. Okay, 1/2 minus negative 1/4 gives me 0.75, or 0.75 as a fraction is 3/4. 3/4 is the pattern. What that means is every time I go from one number to the next, I'm adding 3/4. And then I add 3/4. And then I add 3/4. So you find that pattern by subtracting, and then you add that to every number to find the next. If I want to know the next term, then I'm going to take this 11/4 and I'm going to add 3/4 to it, and that will give me the next term. So find the pattern and then add it to the last one. So if I have 11/4 minus, plus 11/4 plus 3/4. The next number I have is 3.5, or change that to a fraction, 7/2. So my answer is H. So first, find the pattern. Second, add that number to the last number you had, okay? So that's step 1, step 2. All right, example 4. Example 4 gives you a pattern, just like the one before it did, just like example 3. The difference is, example 3 wanted to know the next term, and example 4 gives us expressions. Well, we already know that if I have expressions or equations, I can type them into y equals, right? But before I do that, I need to figure out what table I would be looking for. So it's also a lot like this example 2, but example 2 gave you the table. So the first thing we need to do in example 4 is we need to make a table. And in order to make your table, first you have to count your pieces. So this is the first situation. Hang on. This is the second, this is the third, this is the fourth. So first all you do is count. Then you want to see what we're looking for. We are looking for the number of petals. So in the first situation, I have 5 petals. The second spot, I have 10 petals. The third spot, I have 15 petals. And the fourth spot, I have 20 petals. My bad. That's where my table comes from. So the X values in your table are just counting how many terms or how many pieces you have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 situations. The F of X part, or the Y part on your table, is literally what you have in that piece. So in the first situation, I have 5 petals. Then I have 10 petals, 15, and 20. So after you make a table, then you're going to type your answer choices into y equals, just like we did on the other ones. Then push second graph so you can see which of those tables would match this one that you built. All right, so y equals the first equation. Our expression is x plus 1. Go to the table. Now, my table needs to start at 1. My table here is still set at 4. So second window, we want it to start at 1. Second graph. This one says 1, 2. That does not match my table. So go back to y equals, clear that one. B says 4x plus 5. Go to the table. This says 1 should be 9. That doesn't work. Back to y equals 5x. Now back to the table. This says 1 is 5, 2 is 10, 3 is 15, and 4 is 20. So C matches my table. We're going to check D just to make sure we didn't make any mistakes. So D says x plus 5. 1 is 6. Nah, that doesn't work. So the answer has to be C. And that is it for these notes. Pretty short and sweet.